May I start my lecture? Okay, so I have 30 minutes in this lecture. I'd like to introduce some medicine for treatment of internal contamination. I selected probably 5 or 6 radionuclides because these radionuclides frequently cause internal contamination accident in all over the world. The first one is tritium. There are a lot of factories or institutions where tritium are being used. You see, there are 2 kinds of water here. Green water, this is cold. Pink water this is hot because tritium. When we inhale, we eat, we drink water with tritium, what happened? Of course, metabolism is all same as this is stable hydrogen. And these are easily penetrate skin with inflammation and lungs and GI tract, either as tritiated water or gaseous form. And biological half-life is not too long. However, when we have accident of internal contamination with tritium, usually we intake tritium probably every day, 7 days or 10 days or something. Usually we do not inhale not only once. Usually we continuously inhale or ingest this tritium. However, when we inhale or we ingest tritiated water once or twice, treatment is not so difficult. I told you, just forcing fluid, because tritium, this is just water in our body, same as just cold water. Therefore, when we drink a lot of water, which means dilution of tritium with hydrogen, stable hydrogen, this is very easy. When we are contaminated with tritiated water, we drink 3 to 4 liters of water every day, and if renal function, kidney function is normal, we have a lot of urine, which means we can excrete a lot of tritiated water into the urine. We can use diuretics, but we don't have to use it. If we have normal renal function, we can drink beer. That's fine. When you 1 liter or 2 liters of beer, you go to bathroom many, many times. That's a very good treatment of internal contamination with tritium. Very easy. I recommend. But nothing wrong from viewpoint of science. Okay, so this is internal contamination with tritium. Okay, second is very important, internal contamination with cesium. So, you know, there are several kinds of radioactive cesium. One is cesium-134, which has been spread into the environment in Fukushima, but physical half-life is 2 years. The other one is cesium-137. Physical half-life is over than 30 years. However, in our body, metabolism of cesium-134 and cesium-137 are same. When we have accident with reactors, usually iodine and also cesium may be spread into the environment. 1 gram of cesium-137 has 3.215 terabecquerel. So if we have small capsule of cesium-137, it's a very strong source for external radiation exposure to radiation, and also if this capsule has been broken, it causes internal contamination with cesium. And usually, this cesium, chemical form of cesium is salt, like a cesium chloride. If there are some researchers here, they know how to purify mammalian DNA from E. coli. Long time ago, we used a lot of cesium chloride for purification mammalian DNA from E. coli. So that's stable cesium. But now we are talking about radioactive cesium, cesium-134 and 137. Okay. Cesium is very easily, rapidly absorbed into the GI tract because this is kind of salt. I don't know the taste of cesium, but I don't know salty or spicy. Have you tried? Nobody knows. Almost 10% of cesium excreted within first 2 days. However, it's not enough. This is spontaneous excretion, but it's not enough if we intake a lot of cesium-137. As mentioned just before, cesium is very similar kinetics for potassium. That's why when we ingest cesium-137, 134, most of cesium distributed in the body, especially muscle. Because potassium is usually inside the cells, not outside the cells. So muscle means tissue of muscle. They have a lot of cells, which means a lot of sodium. Therefore, when we inhale or ingest cesium, most of cesium goes into, not most of, but a lot of cesium goes into muscle and they stay here, they stay there. So how to treat internal contamination with cesium? Typically, 80%, over than 80% of biological removal from the body. But they have special cycle in the body. That's different from potassium. Okay. So biological half-life for men, adult, 100 days, 80 days, 70 days. But 5 years, child, 1 month. So what does it mean? Okay. I inhale cesium-137 today. And 2 months later, I will receive whole body counter. If I have son of 5 years old, he inhaled cesium-137 today. 2 months later, he is going to have also whole body counter. What happened? Whole body counter may not detect cesium-137 child of 5 years old because 2 half-life passed. Then his mother or father, he understands, oh, he was not contaminated with cesium-137 at all. Only me was contaminated with cesium-137. Is it correct? No. Because 2 months later, all of sodium-137, 134 is gone from the body of this child. He was contaminated. Whole body counter could not detect cesium-137 in his body. So that's why we have to consider biological half-life for internal contamination with radioactive materials. And for pregnant women, half-life of cesium is very short, less than 2 months. Probably it's in parallel to metabolic rate, as you know, because children, they are very quick metabolic rate, and also pregnant women. Anyway, biological half-life is very important for treatment of internal contamination with radionuclide. And how to treat internal contamination with cesium? We usually recommend using Prussian blue. But I don't know, in your country, Prussian blue has not been approved by the government in many countries, probably in Asia. In Japan, several years ago, Prussian blue has been approved by Japanese FDA, but now we can use, but in Fukushima, there are several workers who are heavily internally contaminated with iodine, not cesium. Highest dose of internal contamination workers is like 700 millisievert or something like that. They were internally contaminated with iodine, not cesium. Cesium is very, very low. They are contaminated with cesium, but the contribution rate is very, very low. Therefore, we have never used Prussian blue in Japan for Fukushima. But actually, we have used Prussian blue for some patient who committed suicide with thallium. That's very toxic chemical. Several people who committed suicide by thallium. That's why we used this Prussian blue. Because here, name is TARI, means anti-thallium drug, not anti-cesium drug. But anyway, this is good for internal contamination with cesium. Why? Because I'll show you some stupid slide. When accident occurred, several people, they inhale, they ingested a lot of cesium, 137 or 134. They are easily absorbed through GI tract and circulate in your body. That's internal contamination with cesium. However, cesium is easily absorbed into the bile through GI tract, and cesium circulate into gastrointestinal system. Therefore, we call it enterohepatic cycle. Observed, secreted. Observed, secreted. We call it enterohepatic cycle. And when we take capsule of Prussian blue goes into our gastrointestinal system. Prussian blue is not absorbed in our body. They stay in GI system. When cesium secreted into gastrointestinal system, Prussian blue binds cesium. Prussian blue catch cesium. Prussian blue cannot be absorbed into gastrointestinal system. Therefore, Prussian blue trapping cesium goes out as feces. This is mechanisms of internal contamination of Prussian blue with internal contamination with cesium, 137, 134, very easily. But in many countries, Prussian blue is not approved by the government. However, all over the country, they have Prussian blue. In medical school, Department of Anatomy, or Department of Histology, and some painter, they use Prussian blue. Yeah. So anyway, this is very easy mechanism for treatment internal contamination with cesium. The problem is, this is not cheap. One bottle of Prussian blue costs $200 or $300, only 20 capsules or something like that. It's not cheap. Do you think it's cheap? Okay. So indication is internal contamination with cesium and also contamination, some thallium. Yeah, yes. And Japan and United States. And modes of treatment, when usually we take 6 capsules per day or more, because this is some result from Goiânia. In Goiânia accident, several people, they took Prussian blue for internal contamination with cesium. So what we tried, we had some clinical experiment in our country. We asked almost 14 healthy volunteers to take Prussian blue for 2 weeks. Nobody showed any adverse effect. No constipation. Many papers say when we take tablet of capsule of Prussian blue every day, color of feces will be blue, but it's not true. Anyway, so no contraindication. Even for pregnant women, they can take this one because it's not observed from GI system. And efficacy is just mechanism is inhibit of enterohepatic recirculation in GI tract by factor 2 or 2 to 3 from result of Goiânia accident. So today, I think Edward at IAEA, he's going to introduce Goiânia accident. I skipped this one, but here, this is a result of Goiânia accident. In adult, older than 18 years old, they took Prussian blue 10 grams per day for many days. And here, before they took Prussian blue, half-life of Prussian blue was almost 80 days. But during taking Prussian blue capsule, biological half-life is 26 days. So which means Prussian blue enhanced to excrete cesium via GI system. Because Prussian blue capture cesium and go outside as a feces. And there are several layers here. Adult, biological half-life 25 days, and children. Even children reduced biological half-life and almost no side effect. Not almost, perfectly no side effect. Okay, therefore, and also mechanism is inhibition of enterohepatic cycle, which means when patients are internally contaminated with cesium, we have to take Prussian blue 1 day after, 2 days after, that's fine. Of course, best one is as soon as possible after intake, but 2 days later, 3 days later, it works. That's different from DTPA. But first choice is take Prussian blue capsule as soon as possible after they intake or inhale. Yeah. But this is different from DTPA. I mean, different from chelating agent. So second one is treatment of internal contamination with uranium. This is a big problem because there are several kinds of uranium here. Some of them type F, some of them type M, some of them type S. Yesterday, some expert explained what's type F, what's type M, type S. Type F is very soluble and easily absorbed, but type S is not absorbed, sometimes stuck in our lung. And the problem is radiotoxicity and also problem is kidney toxicity. uranium stayed in kidney and breaks some tubular of kidney. That's a problem. But usually, accident occurred by inhalation in occupational exposure. But some area, they drink some water contaminated with uranium, but that's not pure uranium. So usually, they might have renal toxicity, chemical toxicity, not radiation toxicity. And there are some results of animal experiment. When we intake 0.08 milligram per kilogram body weight of uranium, we may have very severe renal dysfunction. But if dose is less than 0.01 milligram per kilogram body weight, we usually do not have so severe renal dysfunction. Therefore, many organizations said occupational maximum permissible concentration of uranium is less than 1 milligram in 70 kilogram person, so very, very low. And here, usually accident occurred by inhalation of uranium, and uranium accumulate into kidney, and uranyl ion binds to renal tubular surface proteins. So it's not so easy to remove uranium from the kidney if they are accumulated. However, there is some medicine to remove uranium from our body. The mechanism is here, to keep urine alkaline by frequent pH measurement. So what we have to do is we take sodium bicarbonate. Many physicians of emergency medicine, they know sodium bicarbonate. If patient has very acidic state, they inject sodium bicarbonate in emergency room. So there are a lot of medicine of sodium bicarbonate by solution and tablet. However, there is different opinion in America. Probably FDA, they don't agree with using sodium bicarbonate for uranium internal contamination, because when urine is alkalinized, what happened? A lot of uranium goes into kidney. So sometimes concentration of uranium in kidney will be very, very high. Therefore, there are different opinions. But usually, however, this is a kind of not consensus, but many physicians of emergency medicine, they agree with using sodium bicarbonate for internal contamination with uranium. Okay, so third one is phosphorus. When I was involved in research, I used a lot of P32 for hybridization for southern blot, or not southern blot, western blot, or not southern blot and also northern blot. So P32 is easily generated from S32 by neutrons. Therefore, there are many researchers, they are still using P32, and physical half-life is almost 2 weeks. And this is widely used in medicine and biochemical research. A long time ago, in hospital, the patient with polycythemia vera, a lot of red blood cells, this kind of disease, medical doctor administered phosphorus 32, the patient with polycythemia vera, but not now. And how to treat patient with internally contaminated phosphorus? First one, hydration. Hydration means drinking a lot of water, increasing urine. And second one is we have to take phosphate binders. There are several ones: calcium bicarbonate, aluminum hydroxide, or aluminum carbonate. That's if we do not have any disease of heart, we can take this medicine because this medicine has calcium. If patient has some disease in heart, it's not so easy to provide this medicine to the patient with heart disease. But if patient they do not have any heart disease, we can use these phosphate binders for internal contamination with phosphorus. The mechanism is here. Just this medicine bind to phosphorus 32 and gastrointestinal system. They go out as a feces. Okay, next one is strontium. In Fukushima, some strontium were spread into the environment. Many people, they worried about contamination with strontium in food, especially marine product, fish. Because there are several kinds of isotope of strontium, but strontium 89 is just half-life is 2 months, but strontium 90 its half-life is almost 30 years, very similar to cesium-137. And now we are using strontium for metastatic cancer like this patient. We use strontium chloride for reducing pain from the bone metastasis. But when people are accidentally contaminated with strontium, how do we treat? First strategy is blocking intestinal absorption to be taken as soon as possible post-incident. Barium. Maybe after 2 hours or 3 hours of intake, we can use barium sulfate. You know, barium is used for enema in gastrointestinal examination. All of hospitals, they have barium. And sometimes we can use calcium phosphate to binding. This calcium phosphate and also barium sulfate inhibit absorption of phosphorus into gastrointestinal system. But we have to use this medicine as soon as possible after intake, not 5 hours, not 8 hours after. However, if a lot of time passed after the intake ingest, what shall we do? We have several choices. One is some agent competing for the bone binding site like a calcium gluconate. When we inject, the patient takes some tablet of calcium gluconate. This calcium gluconate compete with strontium 90. They want to sit in just one chair, so they compete, kind of die. So when we provide calcium gluconate, sometimes calcium gluconate sit in this chair. So strontium, they cannot sit on the chair. So they have to leave from their body. That's one of the mechanisms. And second one is diluting radioactive strontium with cold strontium. There are several medicines of cold strontium, like a strontium lactate or strontium gluconate. So you can buy in your country. So that's dilution. This is mechanism of treatment of internal contamination with strontium. Okay, so probably this is the last one, cobalt-60. When workers check reactor for electricity, sometimes they inhale cobalt-60 in nuclear power plant, not high level, low level. But there are several kinds of cobalt-60, but usually chemical form is salt. It's soluble, but sometimes acidic form, it's not insoluble. We can treat contamination with soluble type of cobalt-60, but it's not so easy to treat contamination with acidic form of cobalt-60 of cobalt. And how do we treat? There is no animal experiments, and there is no scientific evidence for treatment of internal contamination with cobalt-60. However, MCRP 161 says we may use DTPA. This is off-label, not published clinical experience. It may be effective for internal contamination with cobalt-60. But we treated patients and also healthy volunteers with DTPA. Nobody showed any side effect so far. So if dose is not so much, we can use DTPA for treatment of internal contamination with cobalt-60. Okay, so I introduced just several radionuclide for treatment of internal contamination. So I have just 5 minutes, 3 minutes or 4 minutes for accepting question and comment. Do you have any comment? Yes, please.
Thank you for your lecture, sir. In presentation 11, in the data, I think after taking a Prussian blue, for adult, is the duration of half day is really significantly shortened.
Yes.
But it's just in my opinion that according to dosage, it is not significant for top to 3.
Which one? This one?
Yeah. I think it is not significant. Is it duration?
Why? Because before I used Prussian blue, biological half-life is almost 80 days.
Oh, yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
So after taking a Prussian blue, it is really shortened.
Yeah.
Yeah, but according to dosage, it's 10 grams per day or 6 grams per day or 3 grams per day. According to dosage, it is not significant in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So in Japan and US, it is per treatment, it is per 9 grams a day. You just say before. So why EU and US and Japan administration rate is 9? I just
Okay. I understand what you are talking about. Okay. But first, I'd like to explain. 9 grams is not absolute dose. If 20 grams, 30 grams is fine because Prussian blue is not absorbed via GI system. So we can provide a lot of Prussian blue to the patient. However, there are several adults. Probably body size is probably different. So probably the difference of body size can affect some result of this, I think. But I'm not sure because this is derived from FDA data. So we have to look at the details, these data. But I understand what you're talking about. Is it okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Maybe I just follow this question. Actually, if you check the top 3 from 10 grams per day to 3 grams, there's a 3 times difference. There is actually a story over there. When Prussian blue was used in Europe first, people give 1 gram per dose, 3 doses per day. So you multiply together, you have 3 grams per day. But when people in USA translated into their document, made a mistake over there. The 3 grams per dose, 3 doses per day. That's why in the US document, it's 9 grams per day. So in the early studies, it showed that 1 gram per dose or 3 grams per dose give a similar effect. That's why here it's reflected similar thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, why uranium? I explained already. I don't know why. Why? Back here, yeah, yes. Wow, something wrong. Anyway, so I prepared, I think, this. Okay, so, okay, please.
Dr. Govin from Thailand. I have a question about whole bowel irrigation. Because of our radioactive, it's a metal, right? If it's ingestion, there's a role of a whole bowel irrigation. Is the first question. And the second question about the cesium, because you told that it's have similar effect like potassium. Is it possible to give the patient potassium binder like K-xylate or calimate to excrete cesium? Thank you.
Okay, so second question is very good question because we received many questions in Japan. Because I told you cesium is very similar to potassium. So if we asked the patient to have a lot of potassium to this patient. Yeah, yes, it's true. However, in some animal experiment, some animal took a lot of potassium. The animal had some toxin from the potassium because if potassium is high level, it's very not good for cardiac disease. So we do not recommend. But there is no evidence potassium is effective for treatment of internal contamination with cesium. And I forgot what is the first question?
In case of ingestion of a radioisotope, and is it possible to do? Because you mentioned about NG lavage, right, from gastric lavage. In toxicology, when the patient ingests overdose of a metal like lithium or like iron, we do the whole bowel irrigation. Is it possible in the radioactive isotope to do the whole bowel irrigation?
What is whole?
Whole bowel irrigation. Whole bowel.
Oh, irrigation. Okay, okay.
Irrigation.
Whole irrigation. Understand? Okay. Yes, it's possible because in NCRP publication, they recommend that kind of medicine. But for me, I don't think it's good idea because patient has some side effect. You understand? So if irrigate our gastrointestinal system, we may have nausea, vomiting, and sometimes we may have diarrhea. It's very good for excretion because nausea, vomiting means pushing out radioactive material outside, but they may have some side effect. I do not recommend, but it's possible, yes. Okay, no more question. Okay, can I move to last question, Doctor. Okay, I'd like to move to next lecture. Okay, so I'd like to introduce DTPA decorporation therapy. However, first, I'd like to explain what happened in Oarai. Oarai in some town of Ibaraki Prefecture next to Tokai village. This accident occurred in last year in June. The reason why I introduced the accident, this is the first case we treated patient with DTPA for internal contamination with plutonium and americium. And this accident is kind of very simple accident, but we have many things learned from this accident. Okay, this accident occurred at Plutonium Research Facility, Oarai Town, Ibaraki Prefecture in Japan, last year, June 6. 5 workers are working, they are checking, they are inspecting some plastic bag containing these radionuclides. This means plutonium and americium. But JAS said this bag contained uranium. But Dr. Kurihara told me we did not detect any uranium from the patient body. And when they are checking, inspecting this container, the plastic bag ruptured and a lot of radioactive material splashed from the food into the outside. And these workers internally contaminated with plutonium americium. Also, contamination on the body surface observed all of 5 workers. We detected only 3 workers for positive nasal swab. So 2 workers, they had negative nasal swab. However, we administered DTPA, all 5 workers. The workers without positive nasal swab, they showed radioactivity of americium uranium in urine. Okay. Nobody knows where Oarai is. Oarai is just a little bit south from Tokai village. Tokai, you know Tokai village, we had a big accident in 1999. 2 people died. Same prefecture. And Tokyo is here, our institute is here. So probably it takes 2.5 hours from car from our institute to Oarai, or 2 hours. And we used DTP as a chelating agent, administered all of workers without positive, 2 workers, they did not have any positive nasal swab. However, bioassay, especially urine and also feces, detected significant amount of plutonium and americium, all of workers, including 2 workers without positive nasal swab. Therefore, we believe workers without positive nasal swab can be administration if they do not have any contraindication. Contraindication means no bone marrow disease, no renal dysfunction. And also if worker agrees with administration of DTPA. Okay. We learned many things from this accident. When plastic bag ruptured, they were wearing protective gear, gloves, and masks, and caps. When accident occurred, they did not have any internal contamination. They had mask, protective gear. Then why they are internally contaminated? They stayed contaminated room for a long time, 4 hours or 6 hours or something, 8 hours or something like that. During that time, they tried to communicate people outside of this contaminated room. How did they make a phone call? With masks, could they talk to them via phone? It's possible. However, when they spoke, probably there was some gaps between skin and mask. Some airs came into their mouths because around here, heavily contaminated. Anyway, okay. So accent Akashi. And when we received some information from JAEA, they told us they were heavily internally contaminated. One of the workers, they had 22,000 becquerel of plutonium-239 and 22 becquerel of americium-241 detected in some workers. We got this information. This is kind of heavily internal contamination because those maybe 12 seabird. But probably Dr. Carl knows there was some accident of internal contamination with plutonium in Germany 15 years ago. Some women, she was forced to ingest plutonium. Her dose was 7 or 8 sievert. She did not develop any symptom. So this is typical internal contamination with plutonium. Usually, plutonium may have some chemical toxicity. However, if dose is around 10 sievert, plutonium does not cause immediate symptom soon after internal contamination. Anyway, we got the information from this JAEA, and we asked a medical doctor, occupational doctor of JAEA, to administer calcium DTPA first. And 5 workers accepted our proposal, and they received calcium DTPA treatment after half day after the accident. Okay, so please look at this table. When accident occurred, they were wearing protective gear and masks and goggles. However, when we received these workers, we detected body surface, skin surface contamination on the chest and back. Why? When accident occurred, they were wearing protective gear. At JA, before they came to our institute, they took shower of cold water. They could not remove all of radioactive materials on the face, and some patients spread plutonium contamination from the face to other body parts. The problem is, water flow with shower was very, very small. They could not use enough water for taking shower, and they use cold water. We usually recommend using not cold water, not hot, but temperature like 37 or 40 degree water to decontaminate body surface. Anyway, so several workers, they had body surface contamination with plutonium and americium. As you know, whole body counter or lung monitor, they cannot distinguish radionuclide on the skin or into the body. In the body, they cannot distinguish. So, have you seen lung monitor? We have lung monitor, probably 4 lung monitors in Japan, but it's not so easy to use. I cannot use. Probably Dr. Kurihara, he can use the whole body counter. Whole body counter is different. Lung monitor is different from whole body counter. Lung monitor can detect only low energy X-ray, less than 100 Kev. Whole body counter detect over than 100 Kev energy of photon. But they detect only very low energy of photon. Okay, when we received the patient June 7, and 2 days after, peak from low energy X-ray from americium has been decreased from 2 days. This is not effect of DTPA. This is affected by external contamination with americium or plutonium on the skin. We detected plutonium americium on the skin. We performed decontamination using a shower and also wiping. And finally, we could remove all of radioactive materials from the body surface. Then, lung monitor showed real activity from the lung. Okay. Here, at JAEA, they did not realize radioactive materials on the skin. Lung monitor detected some radioactive materials on the skin. They thought these 22,000 becquerels came from inside the body. So that's why they overestimated by lung monitor. And I told you, when we take care of a patient internally contaminated with radionuclide, size of particle is very important. When particle size is very small, these particles go deeper in the lung. However, if particle size is very big, they stuck the nose, the throat, and then finally they go into gastrointestinal system. So therefore, it's very difficult to find size of particle responsible for internal contamination. Fortunately, dose of these workers very, very low. Not very, very, but still effective dose is, maximum dose is between 100 millisievert to 100 millisievert, and other workers less than 50 millisievert, not so high. However, even radiation workers who had a lot of knowledge of plutonium, they don't like internal contamination with plutonium americium. A worker asked us to continue treat internal contamination with plutonium americium. That's why we are providing treatment with DTPA now. That's not scientific reason now. Okay. Anyway, so I'd like to introduce what's DTPA. DTPA is, there are actually 3 kinds of DTPA. Calcium DTPA and zinc DTPA and also sodium DTPA. But sodium DTPA cannot be used. Why? Because sodium DTPA chelate calcium from our body too much. We lose a lot of calcium. That's why we usually use calcium and zinc DTPA. And these DTPA form stable chelate with metal ions like plutonium, americium, exchanging these calcium, zinc for metal of greater binding capacity. And plasma half-life of DTPA is less than 1 hour. That's a reason why we inject DTPA to the patient for 30 minutes. If we inject DTPA for 1 hour, during that time, a lot of DTPA goes out, excreted in urine. Therefore, we recommend injecting DTPA for 30 minutes. We usually use some automatic pump for injecting DTPA to the patient. Okay, I skip, okay. So this is label box of DTPA. In our country, DTPA has been, both DTPA have been approved several years ago. So now we use DTPA, but I imported this DTPA almost 20 years ago. I declared to the government, I use this DTPA for animal experiment. I told a lie to the government. And that's why I personally imported this DTPA from Germany. If you'd like to buy DTPA, you can buy it from Germany. If you show this is medicine, it's really need for emergency, probably government accept your proposal. Okay. So DTPA is effective for not only plutonium, americium, and also many things, cobalt or something. But there is no scientific evidence for treatment of internal contamination with cobalt-60. And great efficacy within 1 hour of intake. If we inject DTPA within 1 hour of inhale or ingestion, that's DTPA is most effective for chelating of these radioactive materials. And adverse effect, very, very low. American FDA says some people had nausea, vomiting, but we treated almost 40 patients in Japan, 40 patients and volunteers, nobody showed nausea, vomiting. Okay, and no contraindication. However, if patients are pregnant women, American FDA recommend using zinc DTPA because zinc DTPA is less adverse effect as compared to zinc DTPA, calcium DTPA. But there is no evidence, scientific evidence. And also, when you use DTPA for washing wound contaminated with plutonium and americium, you have to put lidocaine for local anesthesia. Why? Because DTPA irritates skin very much. We injected DTPA for 40 people. Sometimes drip infusion is in the skin. Patient complained, painful, oh, ouch, ouch. So we have to use, if we use DTPA for wound washing, we have to put 2% lidocaine. It's better. The only side effect is depletion of endogenous trace metals, like zinc, magnesium, or manganese. Okay. So this slide shows mechanisms of DTPA of chelating plutonium americium. When plutonium americium, they go into our body, and we inject DTPA, calcium DTPA, zinc DTPA. DTPA has zinc or calcium here. But when they see plutonium, DTPA change calcium to plutonium or americium. So DTPA having plutonium, they are excreted into the kidney and go out as a urine. So this is mechanisms. And this is protocol in our country. We have several protocols. We inject calcium DTPA for 5 days, and second protocol is the first day we inject calcium DTPA, second, third, fourth, fifth, we inject zinc DTPA, and 5 days we inject zinc DTPA. However, we can use nebulizer for calcium DTPA. If medical doctor is not there on site, nobody could inject DTPA to the workers. So at that time, we can use calcium DTPA in using nebulizer. Okay. Usually, one cool treatment means we inject calcium DTPA for 5 days. That's regular protocol. Okay, I show you some result in accent in Oarai. Okay, this is result of work A. Before we inject DTPA, activity of plutonium urine is around here. However, after injection of calcium DTPA, what happened? 30 times, 40 times of plutonium was excreted into urine. We injected DTPA half days after the intake, but not too late. We are injecting DTPA still now in the workers. DTPA increase excretion of plutonium americium in urine. However, it does not affect any doses because background level is very, very low. Even DTPA has 5 times, 10 times of urine excretion rate. It does not affect any dose because before we administer DTPA, activity of plutonium is maybe 1 millibecquerel per 24 hours urine. It's very, very low. We are going to publish this data very soon. Anyway, I skip. Okay, the problem is here. Please take a look at this slide. I told you, calcium DTPA chelate manganese or zinc or other small metals, small essential metals. When we inject calcium DTPA to the patient, normal volunteers, every day, levels of alkali phosphatase is decreased until 5 days. And we stop to administer DTPA. Level of alkali phosphatase return to the normal value. The mechanism is DTPA chelated zinc from our body. Alkali phosphatase is enzyme which require zinc. Therefore, when we administer this kind of DTPA to the patient, we have to watch some enzyme from liver or some bone. Alkali phosphatase is located in liver or bones, but most of alkali phosphatase is located in the liver. But it's a kind of side effect. Of course, patient did not have any signs or symptoms. And very good thing, got it here. Zinc excretion of zinc is very much increased when we intravenously inject calcium DTPA. However, if normal volunteers use nebulizer for calcium DTPA, excretion level of zinc is half. Therefore, intravenous injection is much, much better than nebulization. However, if there is a medical doctor on site, there is no medical doctor on site, we could use nebulization for calcium DTPA administration. And manganese. But this is not published data. When we administer calcium DTPA, normal, healthy volunteers, what happened? Lot of cadmium is excreted into the body. So which means we have a lot of cadmium. And rate, yes, we can use calcium DTPA. When we inject calcium DTPA normal volunteers, a lot of lead is excreted into the urine. So probably calcium DTPA is effective for many metals of internal contamination. And mercury, when we inject administered calcium DTPA, levels of mercury is going up by calcium DTPA. So which means we have a lot of mercury in our body. We are internally contaminated with mercury. Okay. Anyway, and second slide is shown here. Calcium DTPA has calcium. Everybody knows. When we administer calcium into the body, what happened? QTC in ECG, electrocardiogram, the QT time is shortened. It's sometimes not good for patients with cardiac disease. Therefore, we checked QT time before and after calcium DTPA. No significant change. So which means we can administer calcium DTPA for healthy volunteers, healthy people, I mean patients without cardiac disease, without any problem. So this is the first slide. Okay, so this is my last slide of this lecture. If you have any question or comment, I'd like to accept.
Thank you for your lecture. This is Gong from KHMP. I wonder, all of workers in Oarai accidents, the treatment has finished or is progressing?
Only one worker we are treating now. 4 workers treatment, they quit, stopped, yes.
DTPA and second DTPA, one means first, second, third DTPA in your slide. One means first and second and third.
Okay, you are talking about our protocols. We have several protocols. Okay, for worker A, his dose was highest. We used, most of treatment is 5 days calcium DTPA. Yes, because we are checking enzyme level of side effect. He did not develop any side effect. And when we quit 1 cycle, and we do not administer DTPA for 5 days, level of alkali phosphatase return very soon.
Just over 5 days.
Yes. Most
Thank
of them, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. No question? Yes.
Has some question about the worker who have no contamination. But you said that after the treatment of DTPA, there's a lot of urine plutonium level, right? Is it possible to have they have the burden of the uranium, not toxicity, but the chronic burden of the uranium from the work?
That's a good question. Yes, it's possible. However, we think 2 workers, they did not have any positive nasal swab, but probably they ingested some DTPA plutonium because there are some soluble type of americium plutonium there. So probably we believe they injected some of them. Or taking a shower, they drank some contaminated water. Okay. You mean effect of chelating?
No, the 2 different DTPAs, right?
Yeah.
So what the main difference is? What is the choice between calcium and zinc?
Oh, okay.
Maybe you already explained.
Yeah. FDA in America, they think first administration, calcium DTPA much more effective than zinc DTPA. But second administration and after, both effective, same. They say so. But in clinical experiment in our institute, calcium DTPA is much more effective than zinc DTPA. That's why we prefer to use calcium DTPA. Why? Why? Because, okay. No, sometimes we use zinc DTPA, but we continue to use calcium DTPA patient. He did not show any side effect. That's why we continue to use DTPA. If he developed some side effect, we switched into zinc DTPA. You understand? Okay, so thank you very much for attention.
Is it ready? My presentation here. It's not mine. This is somebody else. Yeah. Oh, the first one. The first one. Yep. So I try to be quick. I don't need half an hour.
Install this.
Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, that work?
이쪽으로.
Oh. Hey.
Let's see if this works.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. I think the last presentation. Janet already gone for lunch? No, not yet. Okay. So I think everybody want to go lunch first. But I'll try to be quick. So far, all of us had a very big dose of intake of knowledge from Dr. Akashi already on medical management of internal contamination. If we stop here, you possibly don't lose anything. You are well covered. But I just want to take a very short bit of time to update you on 2 research projects. I don't need half an hour, by the way. On 2 research projects on the Decorporation part. Okay. Before I talk about my project, I want to share with you something just for your information. You might have already known. In USA, they are working on oral administration of Decorporation drugs. On 2 of them, DTPA parts. The National Institute supported the project. They delivered oral formula already. People can take. It is less effective than administration through IV injection or through inhalation by effect of pretty much 5. But it is very handy when you use. It's a take early, right? You don't need the injection. You don't need the inhalation. Another one is HOPO. I don't know if you have ever heard of this one. In Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, in the past 25 years, a group, the bioactinide group, has been working very hard on this. I didn't follow up with them recently, but I guess it is very close to be clinically approved by FDA for use. This can be used for oral as well. And then is my project, 2 research projects ongoing. Not finished yet. I just give you a very brief introduction here. The first one is inhalation and administration of Decorporation drugs. If you pay attention to Dr. Akashi's presentation just now, he mentioned that for DTPA, after IV injection, about 12 hours is all gone because DTPA gets excreted from the body very quickly. The objective of this project is to can we retain DTPA in the body longer. We keep it there longer. We let it release gradually, so we don't have to repeat very frequently. This is the first project. The second one is inhaled insoluble particles. Also, early in the morning, Dr. Akashi mentioned, if we got radioactive particles inhaled, but if the particles are not soluble at all, how to do? Lavage is one thing. Do we have any other solutions? This is the second research project. For this one, the inhaled insoluble particles, I'll just give you one example. You might have heard called RTG. It's kind of a radio thermal generator used quite widely in remote area in Russia, former USSR regions, now including Russia, Georgia, everywhere. It is made of strontium-90 titanate. It's higher fired. If someone, let's take a bad person, take a chunk of this material, put it in a bomb, explode, and if we are by accident, we are close to that thing, we might get contaminated. These kind of particles get into our lung. They are not soluble at all. How to do? Well, we can do lung lavage if the number of people are small, but if the number is not small at all, if we end up with hundreds of people, we possibly cannot perform lung lavage very effectively. So can we use proved drugs to do that? There are a number of drugs proved for lung disease now. Is there any one of them or combination of them can help us do this? That's the research part. Well, we picked 4. Basically, the first 3 is that to help the generation and the movement of mucus. Because if we get these kind of insoluble particles into the lung, if we can help to facilitate the movement of these particles from the respiratory tract to the GI tract, that'd be good. The second one, if the particles are very small, they go to a very deep part of the lung, we possibly cannot move them at all. What we can do is that, can we use a new thing, a drug called statin? You possibly have heard statin. It has been used in other medical purpose. It showed that statin actually can facilitate the movement of a macrophage from the lung to the lymph node. And we know macrophage can catch the particles. So if we can give statin, maybe statin can catch the particles and move to the lymph node. Once they are in the lymph node, it will go to the blood system and get excreted step by step. So this is the design of this project. We picked the wrong model. I will show you why later. We picked a rat model. It's a long Evans rat because we cannot use human. It will take forever to get approval for human experiment. So we use the rats. And the particles, we made the particles. We made it strontium titanate. We don't use 90 for sure because it's too radioactive. We use stable strontium titanate, but we use a reactor to activate. So the isotope 84 can become 85, which gives gamma, which is very handy for us to measure. So these particles we burned, very technical. I'm going to skip this. The particle size distribution give around 3 microns median, and we instilled into the lung and the trachea area directly. Don't want to show you this one. It's very unpleasant. About 1/4 milligram of the particle with 40,000 becquerel of strontium 85, which can be easily measured within 3-4 minutes. And then we built a whole body counter for rats. And we have actually a phantom over there, the red phantom over there. We built all this thing. And then we gave the drug. We make the drug as a suspension using this kind of inhalation chamber to to convert this suspension into aerosol, deliver to the nose of the rats, use this nose-only device, and we hoped the drugs can go to the lung, so we can see our expected effect. I will skip this one very quickly because it's technical and it's very hard to understand. The reason I skip it because they are not good data. So the model of rats is not good. Later on, we came back to see what happened. They are not effective at all for the first three drugs because we cannot give the drug to the rats through the inhalation system. The nose structure of rats are very complicated. They are born so because they live in the dirt. They have to have a very complicated structure of the nose so they don't get a lot of soil into their lung. Well, now we cannot get the drug in. What we're going to do for the next step, we're going to change the animal model. We're thinking of bigger ones. It's very hard to get approval to use the bigger ones, dogs, monkey. Someone volunteered to use monkeys, and we will see. And I hope I can have another opportunity to share with you the numbers in the future. I really want to push the drugs into the nose, see if the expected effect will happen or not. The second project, I said, can we make DTPA or another drug, HOPO here, to stay in analysis but longer? Well, in this project, I'll come back a bit. In this project, what we designed, we're going to use a kind of a nanoparticle, which is made of a catocyan. I don't know if you have ever heard of this kind of thing. Catocyan is a chemical made from shellfish. It is biologically friendly, has been proven by FDA to use. And we try to attach this particle to our drug, or in other professional word, we said encapsulate our drug in the particle. Why catocyan? Catocyan itself is slightly positively charged, while our lung system, the respiratory tract, is slightly negatively charged. Okay, by giving the drug through the inhalation system, we inhale that. So the positive charge of catocyan will attach to the negative charge, the mucus system layer. It will stay there longer. And in our lung system, we have a lot of enzyme. It will help decompose the catocyan and slowly, gradually release our drug. That's the design. Okay. Particles. This picture shows the SEM structure of the few particles which has been burned in the reactor for more than 10 years. Why this one? They give us a relatively higher specific activity of actinides, so we can use. Second, the particles are relatively soluble, at least the top M, because after so many years, they become soluble. So these can be candidate particles for us to use in this research project. This just shows you the structure of DTPA and the catocyan. And the method has been published, by the way, this one. It's called a method to produce this kind of nanoparticle. This gives you the particle size distribution of the nanoparticles. And this is the the structure showing that the attachment of the nanoparticle and the drug. And pretty much the last slide I already explained. We are going to take the advantage of the charges with the drug and with our lung system. We are going to do animal experiments this time. Hopefully the rats will work for us. I really hope we can get some good numbers here. That's it, 10 minutes, I promise you. No question, right? Lunchtime. Yeah. Oh.
Thank you very much. Introduction of DTPA. So your project is some modification of structure of DTPA or other chemicals?
Well, the structure of the drug itself will not be modified, but it will be
encapsulated
into a nanoparticle. When we make nanoparticle, we first use it's kind of polymer, right? It will be this way, and this is the drug. It will be encapsulated inside. There will be a weak hydrogen bond over there. So the hydrogen bond is strong enough to keep it for a while, but weak enough to release it.
Okay.
So yeah, the structure of the drug.
So makes biological half-life longer.
That's what we hope. Yeah.
And also, you are talking about the Kato-san. We had some experiment using Kato-san for treating a very, very low level of plutonium in small animals, but it worked. But if level of internal contamination level is very high, it did not work. We
Kato-san itself?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
how about this thing? Yeah.
Oh, here we just use Kato-san to make the nanoparticle. Yeah, well, Kato-san itself might help decorporate, by the way.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, if you have any question last time, we can talk. Thank you. Yeah.
Discussion.
Okay. We have 20 minutes for discussion. So if you have any question to each speaker or you have any comment, please raise your hand. Okay, so if you do not have any comment or question, Dr. Kurihara is going to explain how to do dose assessment or Oarai in 5 minutes, 3 minutes.
My name is Osamu Kurihara. Now I'm in charge of the dose assessment in Oarai accident as well as Fukushima accident. Next presentation. Now we are having continued the dose assessment study. So the Dr. Akashi showed the slide showing the urine data. So each data we have much time. We take time. We take time to the to obtain that each plot. So much effort we have done to get the urine data. Anyway, so the most concern is DTPA's effect or not. So this is the question. So now we now do the first our dose estimation is reported one month after the accident to last year July 10th, and then at that time as Akashi showed the slide. So the maximum dose is 100 millisievert from 100 millisievert to 200 millisievert. It's very good news. And then the first report from JAEA, 12 sievert. At the time, we surprised how to do that. So, but unfortunately, so we found this the reason is surface contamination of the lung. So but I don't intend to criticize the JAP colleagues because I worked at JAE anyway, and because the site of the accident, the people very rushed and panicked, and then in Japan, contractor have to report regulatory authority within 1 hour after the accident. So maybe they have to be rushed and to respond to accidents. The reason the first dose estimation by JAE very overestimated. Anyway, so Dr. Akashi said said that maybe DTPA efficacy is limited because so the detailed data will be published soon. But anyway, so anyway, and the most important thing is how to evaluate the intake, first intake. So we have to evaluate the accurate intake amount by interpreting reasonably all data obtained from the patient, such as feces sample, and also lung monitoring, and also urine monitoring. And then we did the liver counting. So because the liver is also one of the target organs where the plutonium accumulated. Anyway, so so as many lectures said, AMAD particle size important for evaluating intake. So we now our latest evaluation is to maybe the particle size inhaled much higher than the 5 microsievert because we got early feces data and also lung deposition data regarding the amnionium 241. So now very small amount of the lung deposition of amnionium deposited lung, about 20 becquerel. And but on the other hand, feces excretion is much high, about the 700 becquerel, like that. So the more precise data about the will be published soon. But anyway, so small lung deposition and a large amount of the feces excretion, suggesting that the inhaled particle size is larger. And also, unfortunately, but anyway, we got a spot urine data after the accident, before DTPA chelation therapy. So this data, this first urine data, means no effect of DTPA. So we determine the absorption type from the first urine sample without the DTPA, in prior to DTPA chelation therapy. So type M and type S is also important part of the dose assessment. Those questions were plutonium DTPA, those questions plutonium between the type M and type S, very different. So our first dose assessment is we decided decided type M to avoid the underestimation of the dose, but maybe our data shows the maybe the medium type M and type mixture composed. But anyway, so now we try to do most precise, accurate intake, and then Dr. Tani, my colleagues, are the expert of the biokinetic model. So he would develop the biokinetic model specified to DTPA effect. So you know that Dr. Akashi showed that after DTPA chelation therapy, so urine excretion is temporary laboratory. It's difficult to simulate such as a temporal increase of the urine data. So now we modified time-dependent transfer rate, including the existing plutonium compartment model. Anyway, so this is too specific. So anyway, so maybe I'd like publish we'd like to publish the accident related in Oarai soon, and then maybe provide the data for intercommunity society like that, so for adults or this community. Thank you very much.
Do you have any comment? Dr. Carr mentioned about Fukushima workers iodine. I have one comment on it. Some workers, maybe 200 workers on Fukushima, they took stable iodine too much, over than 20 tablets, or maximum is 80 tablets. Some of them developed hypothyroidism, and some of them developed hyperthyroidism. So if we take too much stable iodine, we may develop hypothyroidism and also hyperthyroidism. The medical doctor in TEPCO, they are going to publish this data very soon. But anyway, when I look at the data, several workers, they had hyperthyroidism after too much stable iodine. So if you take stable iodine over than 1 week, you should be careful because you have to check a level of T3, T4, and also TSH. TSH is a very good indicator for evaluation of thyroid function after stable iodine. Do you have any comments? No? You have a comment?
So we have a musical chair rotating questions going on here. I hope the rest of the audience also is more active, show interest, come up with questions. You showed when we were talking about cesium and Prussian blue, you said that the child after 2 months will show that he was not contaminated, although he was. But how would they then diagnose that actually the child was affected? Would the biological dosimetry be helpful in this case? No. But how would they then detect this?
I think the best way is calculation from mother's or father's dose, because they had almost same food, and the volume is different. So if mother's dose or father's dose is cleared, we can calculate from those for the, yes. And also, when you use a whole body counter in contaminated area, you should be careful. Some children, they have some junk in the pocket. It includes some cesium. Whole body counter cannot distinguish the radioactive materials on the pocket from the inside the body. So when you use whole body counter or lung monitor, you should remove all of radionuclide from the body surface. Otherwise, you will perform overestimation by whole body counter or lung monitor. That's very important lesson learned from Fukushima. For the workers Oarai, we performed chromosome analysis for 5 workers Oarai, but nobody showed significant aberration of chromosome in these workers.
I have a question for possibly both for you. For the Oarai extent, soon after the 5 workers get contaminated, you provided the treatment and monitoring. Question is that, did you miss any initial fecal samples? The first 3, for example? Or you collected all of them from the very beginning? Well, they are important. Yeah. Okay.
So you mean that samples taken from the fecal sample? Yeah, fecal sample. We take the all fecal sample and in the first week. Yes. So the yes. So the after we received the 5 workers at the Oarai, and then we collected all samples and they hospitalized in our hospital, and then we took the old samples. Yes. Yes.
That would
And when you keep feces, it's better to freeze. It's better for keep feces. Yes, otherwise we are going to be a big problem. Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting. I just would like to know, we have a lot of experience from the incidents, radioactive incident, right? So I'm wondering, at the same time from our side to improve our treatment for internal contamination and how we do, dissemination of information to public, how to improve public awareness and to, from their side,
It is very important because radiation accident very, very rare. So we have to collect all of information in one place, like reading by WHO or IAEA. We need some database for treatment of internal contamination, the lessons learned from internal contamination accident. But each country cannot establish this kind of database. Probably IAEA or WHO, if they can establish this kind of database, it's going to be very helpful, I think. How about you think?
Oh, okay. The new review. Within the REMPAN, yesterday I mentioned that we have a group working on internal contamination, including Dr. Kurhara here, Dr. Ha. He's not here today. He was here yesterday. We have a number of people. We just started a project to review how we manage the public health and medical part during the past major accident for internal contamination only. Okay, focus on internal contamination. And so far, we have identified a number of big accidents, including 3 from Russia, 3 smaller ones from the US, and Fukushima will be one of these. And we have one from Brazil, the Guyana, and tomorrow we're going to have a talk, today, this afternoon, sorry. China may contribute, a number of them. France, UK may contribute as well. We're going to summarize this. Will be a number of steps. The first step is to objectively summarize what we did. First step, what we did in responding to that accident, public health and medical management. Second part is that separate what we did well and what we did not do well. And then we analyze why we did not do well. I think from there, gradually we dig into the gaps we need to fill in the future. Yeah.
You have some comment? No? Okay.
Some question to Dr. Carr about potassium iodide. You mentioned that some workers ingest a lot of potassium iodide to prevent the radioactive iodine, about 90 tablets, right? Is there any complication like hyperthyroid or thyroid storm? Is the first question. And second question is, if the patient is known about allergy to contrast media, it's possible to give potassium iodide.
Your first question is Fukushima workers. So one worker, he took 80 tablets of stable iodine. He did not develop any hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism.
And as for the allergic reactions to iodine, actually there is, I think we elaborated in one of the annexes such situation, and there is an alternative medication called potassium chloride, I think it's called. Potassium or not potassium? Potassium chloride, yeah, is used in very rare situations because the incidence of allergic reaction to potassium iodine is very, very low. But there is an alternative solution as well. Okay, any further questions? All right, okay. So I think we will break for lunch. At this point, I want to thank our presenters for very informative, excellent presentations. And the lunch break is for 1 hour, I believe. We should be back. Yeah, so we should be back at 2 o'clock. Thank you.